Welcome to Tips for the Transition, where we have deep, meaningful conversations about life. We talk about how significant changes like divorce, grief, and career change can affect us, our family, our relationships, and our work, and how to move beyond them. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan, certified career and life coach for women, and I'm here to support you through the messy seasons of life so you can answer big questions like who am I now and how do I move on from here? If you're ready to consider new options, be inspired, and meet incredible women who are on this life journey with us, you're in the right place. You'll find something in each episode to give you hope and encourage you to move from panic to powerful, from rocky to resilient, and from upside down to right side up. This is Tips for the Transition. Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us on Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap. We come to you live every week on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and on your favorite podcast channels. So please be sure to join us every week when we come to you. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. I'm a career and life coach for women. And my vision is to create resources that help women navigate career and life challenges with more ease and grace, and to know that they are not alone. So each weekly conversation with inspiring women is intended to help women around the world be more confident, resilient, and brave in their careers and indeed in their lives. So if something strikes a chord during this conversation, please take a look below at the show notes or the comments, depending on where you're watching, and take a look at the connection information that I'll share with you there. As we start a new year, there are so many possibilities for the way things can turn out. So today we are going to talk about options with Katrine Horn, who comes from the south of France by way of Denmark originally. Katrine is a professional classical musician turned life coach and a TedX speaker. She also calls herself a former professional people pleaser. That's a mouthful to say. Until she realized that no amount of adoring fans or rave reviews could make her feel loved, as long as she was trying to prove her worthiness. So, having successfully navigated several career changes, one of her passions is to coach young people on how to choose careers. So, I wondered if Katrine could share part of her process so that maybe that would help women today who are struggling with career choices. So, we call this episode Options. There's always more than one. So let me bring Katrine on with us. Here we go.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Hello. I'm so glad you're with us today. It is a pleasure. I love to talk about options, and I think that this is an important conversation to have.
I think you're so right, Maria. And the more we talk about them, the more we can see them.
Yeah, I agree. As a career coach, I often talk with clients about what they want next. But so many of them base their next career move on what they have done in the past, as though that defines them somehow. And that means that they may be missing out on other options that they haven't explored. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about how we can explore all of our options when we're considering a career change.
Yeah, that is a gorgeous question. And can I just say that when I changed from being a classical musician, as you said, to become a life coach, it meant that I had to let go of, well, all the years I had spent practicing my instrument since infancy, practically. right? And I had to do something completely different. So I was okay with that. But people around me asked me, well, Katrina, how can you do that? Are you not going to play music anymore? I mean, they were just shocked, right? And I went even further. I went and sold my instrument, which was the harp. So I separated not only from my career, but from what actually enabled me to have a career. And I think that is the first obstacle we get when we start thinking about, so what can I do next? We think, oh, I must hold on to what I've already done because, I mean, that's what I've got. And we believe we've only got what we have done in the past. Like I could have believed that I can only play music, right? That is my only path forward. And unless I'm willing to let go of all that and look at all my options in a new way, well, then I'm going to be stuck with that. And then my choices get limited. I used to be a concert harpist and I got fed up with traveling. I wanted to settle down and be with my husband, have a house, make a home. I wanted all that. And when I was a musician, I was always traveling. So I had to let go of all that, didn't I, to embrace something new. So I think our first step is really in letting go of our baggage, you could say, our baggage from the past. And once we let go of that, then we can actually start noticing what else we could do. Is that something you can recognize, Maria?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I think you're so right that we have to first, uh, and this is not easy to do, to let go of what it is we have done in the past in order to see what the possibilities are for doing something new. But what if we can't even see what those options are?
Yes, so that's our next point. But I just wanted to sort of strike a chord here with our audience because, like, I recently talked to a medical doctor who let go of all her training as a medical doctor, and those are many, many years she spent, right, to run a hotel. Can you imagine that? Like, so much she had to let go of. And she could say, oh, well, what a waste, right? What a waste to let go of all that studying, of all that hard practice, of all that work. But I think if we are willing to, then we can start seeing the options. And what I recommend we do to start noticing our options is that we go back to our childhood. So why do we want to go back to our childhood? It's because when we were little, we didn't have those filters. We didn't have that self censorship, did we? So we just embraced whatever we liked. And let's face it, if today we want to change careers, if we want to transition, well, then it's because we want to do something we love doing, isn't it? We're not going to want to do something that we've already done or we didn't like doing. We want to do something that we love doing. And I think that many of us have forgotten what it was we liked doing when we were children. And we need to bring that up into our awarenesses so that we can see, well, what actually did I choose before I got into censorship, before I started noticing what other people thought, and before I started telling myself what I should be doing. So my first tip would be to go back to your childhood and see the games you enjoyed playing.
I think that's great advice, and I think we also need to open the aperture for our minds, right? And think about what are the things that we enjoy doing. So the example of the doctor who changed careers and wasn't a doctor anymore. Um, you're right. Those of us on the outside are looking at that as wow. I mean, that's how many years, 8, 12 years of of studying to be a doctor before you can even practice medicine. And to give all of that up, she must have gone through a process similar to yours, right? As a musician, when you get to a point and you just say, I'm not happy. This doesn't serve me anymore. Maybe you're doing something that someone else expected you to do. Maybe that's why that woman became a doctor, because everybody in her family was a doctor. It was expected. And when you get to the point where you're just not happy doing what you're doing, that's when it's easier to say, I'm going to let go and I'm going to explore other things that I can do. And I'm going to find what will make me happy. So, all of that being said, what might hold us back from actually doing that?
Well, as you stressed it in your introduction, we need to be brave, don't we? We need to be brave. So, first of all, to let go of our past and everything we have accumulated. And we think that that defines us, right? So, I talked about the doctor. I'm sure that being able to say to people, I'm a doctor, is very comfortable because everybody knows what that is, and people look up to doctors. So, that is very comfortable. And she got to think of herself as a doctor, right? So, if we want to explore our options, well, then we have to let go of the label of what it was we were in the past, right? Once we let go of the label and we go into our childhoods and look at what it was we really enjoyed, if we can find something that we enjoyed doing, then we can start noticing our strengths. And the whole point of looking at what you like playing with or the games you like playing when you were little, what you were fascinated by, is to find out where your strengths are. Once we define our strengths, well, then we know that, well, first of all, we are not what we used to do. So this one was no longer a doctor. I'm no longer a musician. But that didn't really define me in the first place. That was just one of the options. I don't have to attach to it. I can let all that go. It doesn't mean that I can't use what I learned all that time. Like, I can still use everything I learned as a musician, and I do that every day. So I can bring part of it with me, but I'm no longer in that box that says musician. So this is so useful. Once you identify your strengths from the games in your childhood or perhaps from your previous career, then you can just notice the strengths and bring them into something new. And once you've identified the strength, I do advise people to communicate on these strengths. And it's really fun to ask your friends, perhaps your family, although family can be a little bit conflictual sometimes, and they've often got a very fixed opinion about your strengths. So it's so interesting when you ask other people, what would you say was my major strength? Do you see what I mean? So you have got an idea yourself of what you used to love playing with. And then when you ask other people, can you tell me what you see as my strengths? Well, maybe the two actually go together, or maybe not. Like the other day, somebody said of me that I love travel. And I thought, well, no, that's not at all my thing. I don't like travel. I like not having a routine. I like getting up in the morning, not knowing what will happen in the day. That's what I like. It's not the traveling. So the more you talk about it, like we're doing now, like you can do at home, like you can do with your friends or colleagues even, the more you can start opening up to, well, actually, I've got a lot of strengths. Some of them I might be using in my present career, and others might be there for me to explore.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about transferring skills from what you have done to what you want to do next, and that can be a scary uh, endeavor. And I think some of the things that can stop us, hold us back from venturing into this newness, this new world of doing something that we have not done professionally before, there's a lot of fear that can crop up, right? So let's talk about that for a moment. What are some of the things that can hold us back from pursuing something that might make us happier than we are now?
Well, I think, Maria, as we said, it's about giving up what you've got. So sometimes you're you're gripping onto something that is no longer serving you. But as you think it's the only thing you've got, you want to hold on to it. So the first thing to consider is to start loosening your grip on it. And already that can bring a tremendous amount of relief, or it can make you believe that there's just a big void. Like, wow, if I'm no longer a doctor, if I'm no longer a musician, what am I?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can allow yourself to stay undefined for a while, and I think that is really the scary part, isn't it? Because we latch onto our identities, like I'm a mum, or I'm a musician, or whatever it is, I'm a wife, I'm American, or I love football, or whatever. We latch onto those things, believing that they define us. So when we can loosen our grip on that and open up to something new, then we just really just need the faith and the trust. And when I say just, it's not, I mean, I know it's so difficult to keep trusting and to have faith, but that is really something that we can build, right? It's something that we can cultivate. It's something that we can learn. Don't you agree?
I do. I do. You're so right. We really do need to trust that everything will turn out okay. I believe when we are kind of faced with this dilemma of not being happy and wanting to find something that will make us happy, whether that's in our lives or in our careers. And obviously those two are inextricably entwined. Career is just a part of our lives. Uh, we we have to acknowledge that there's going to be this period of time of unknowing, not really knowing what's going to happen. Fear of the unknown is one of those things that can hold us back, stop us in our tracks, and keep us stuck where we are in that unhappy place. So trusting that everything will work out, I think, is a very key element in being able to move forward with just some faith, right? Taking a leap of faith that we are strong, we're resilient, we're smart, we're resourceful, we surround ourselves with people who will support us, and that will help us move forward into that unknowing space.
And also, I think we could add to that, Maria, knowing and trusting because we know that we are right on track. We are just right on track.
Yeah, yeah, or headed that way. Yeah.
Yeah, we are headed towards if we go really with our desires. And I would like to talk a little bit about desires because I believe that our desires actually show us the way. Think of it, if you are always choosing something that you like, if you're always doing something you like doing, well, then you can't go wrong.
Right.
And I think that some of us, we believe we have to sort of stifle those desires and start being serious and choose something that we have to do because that's just how we were brought up, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if we actually allow ourselves to go with our desires, we're being led from one step to the next all the time, just every time, all the time, listen into how you're feeling and always choosing what you desire most, what makes you feel good. If we make sure that we feel good, all our choices will just fall into place, I believe. And that will lead us into something that we don't need to define right away. Like with my client who went from a doctor to being in hospitality, well, she didn't go there straight away because she was willing to stay in that space that you describe of uncertainty, right? She was willing to stay there for a while, listen in to really her deep desires, going back to her childhood to see what she enjoyed doing, and then letting all that ferment, if I can say like that, and wait for some clear guidance towards what it would be, towards what you really called. So that takes time. You can't do that in one afternoon. You have to be
Right.
willing to sit in that space, as you say.
Yeah. And you know, opportunities generally show themselves, right? When you are willing and open to acknowledging them. And there are opportunities just out there all the time waiting for us to be ready for them, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? When the person who is willing to take this risk of stepping into something new, opportunities present themselves for consideration, and then you get to explore options. So I think that's such a key element here. Let's talk for a minute, Katrina, about what might be the consequences of not stepping into that space of unknowing. Let's talk about what happens if we just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. So, well, if we're thinking about change, it's because we are craving change, isn't it? So, if you don't want to listen to that voice inside of you who's sort of stimulating or motivating or inspiring you into thinking about change, well, that really means that we are ignoring part of ourselves. I mean, think of it, if you had somebody trying to talk to you all the time and you just wouldn't listen, I mean, that would be so impolite. And yet we do that to ourselves, don't we? When we get this inspiration, like, let me go back to the doctor, thought, oh, I would like to change, like, I would like to have a hotel. She could have told herself, oh, don't be silly, you're a doctor, you can't do that, right? So um, we can't define what the next step is too quickly, right? We have to be with it for a while. And as you say, our next step will be presented to us in the form of an opportunity. And if we can allow ourselves to stay open to those opportunities for a while, well, that is really when we get to have all the choice. And
Right.
also reminding ourselves that there's not one right option, right? There are so many right or possible options, right? It's like being in front of a buffet. There's not just one thing to eat, there are so many, and we get to choose. We really do get to choose.
Yeah. 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 So it's something occurred to me as you were just talking about that. And it is the example I think you used was the doctor who could have talked herself out of giving up all that she had earned to become a doctor, to become a hotel owner, manager, whatever she became, and talking herself out of it. The other thing that occurs to me is that there are so many people around us who love us, right, and want the best for us and will help us talk ourselves out of it. And we have to be really strong in our will if we do want to change. If what we are doing right now is just not feeding our soul and we crave something different, that those people who love us and are looking out for our best interest, so they think, are helping us talk ourselves out of it. And it's at that point, I think we have to be very clear with the people who think they're helping us, and just be very clear about the quest we're on, right? So I know, there are things you can say like, I know you're trying to help, but this isn't helpful right now. I really need to make a change, and I would really love your support in making that change. And be really clear about what it is you need in order to get the support that will help you get there.
That is so beautifully put. Yes. I mean, for myself, I know that when I said I wanted to go to music college in London playing the harp, people just told me, you can't do that. It can't be done. When I wanted to move to Paris to play the harp, people told me, oh, you can't do that. When I wanted to train as a life coach, people say, well, you can't do that. So people will always, as you say, tell you that you can't do it. But what they really mean is, I wouldn't be able to do it, or I wouldn't want to do it. That's all. They're
Or
just,
I'm afraid for you if you do that, that it may not work out for you, and that you won't be happy, and that,
yeah.
or that you're leaving me. There's so
They've
many
got,
things.
they've got a lot of fears. But what helps me when I announce my crazy projects that I'm always doing, um, when people say, "Oh, why do you want to do that? You can't do that." I just say, "Well, this is how I want to do it. I know that you don't want the same thing, but this is what I want, right? And it
Yeah.
might not be what you want for me, right? But trust me
Right.
on that.
Right.
Yeah?
Exactly.
So, of course, people are trying to protect us, but they're coming from their space, right? They're coming from their
Exactly.
limitations.
That's right.
And we've got enough limitations ourselves. We don't have to take on those of other people, I believe. And of course, that takes courage. And as you just said, well, you can tell people this is not helpful to me right
Right.
now, and
Right.
then also describe what support would look like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you tell people, if you let them know right now, what would be really gorgeous for me would be that you do this, that, or say so, or refrain from.
Or
So
right.
you,
Or just, yeah, zip it. Don't
yeah,
share your opinion of this because it's not helpful. So on that same vein, there are some people who would say that it's irresponsible of us to pursue our dreams and focus on what it is we really want to do, that things that will make us happy. And that the responsible thing would be to follow the path of our experience, like the doctor or you as the magician. It is the sure thing,
yeah. But
essentially.
if the sure thing is slowly killing the life force in you, right? It's
Exactly.
not, I mean, we could make ourselves ill. I'm sure that anybody who's tried doing a job that they didn't like, they might have felt stress, they might have felt anger, they might have felt resentment, they might have felt frustration, they might have felt
Yeah.
so many negative emotions around it. And negative emotion is not good for your body. So you might just be shortening your life, mightn't you? If you really persist in doing something that is not making you happy. And
And
especially as today, we've got so many opportunities to do
yeah.
something that we
Mm.
love, right?
And perpetuating all of those negative emotions you mentioned too, those are some of the consequences that we suffer when we don't pursue what's in our heart to pursue. If there
Mm.
is, if we need to make a change, if whatever that means to each of us, um, those are some of the consequences when we don't pursue them. So my advice is get the help you need to pursue your life's desire. So let's talk about, what do you say to someone who is afraid to take the risk, to um, who says something like, "How can I be sure that I'm doing the right thing and that I'll succeed in what I set out to do?"
Mm. How can you be sure? Well, you can never really be sure of anything in life, can you? Because you could be
Right.
run over by a bus in 5 minutes.
Right. But what advice would you give them then?
Yeah. So um, I would ask them to have a look at really what would help them feel more sure, perhaps not completely 100% sure that they had got it, but it's about having the support you talked about. But just on your own, you can start researching people who have done it, right? You can start um, informing your beliefs um, by nourishing them with people who have done something similar to what you want to do. So instead of looking at all the negative possibilities, you could start focusing on the positive possibilities. So you could focus on I risk failure. I risk perhaps financial ruin. I risk losing my friends. I risk losing my family. I mean, that would be sort of extreme, but you could focus there. Or you could focus on when I do what I love, I will be happy. When I'm happy, I am such a joy to everybody I get in contact with. When
Right.
I'm happy, people around me will be happy. And you can start focusing on everything that is really much more joyful and much more inspiring, right? Because we've got one of the quotes that I love is by Erin Hansen, who said, who answered to somebody who said, "What if I fall?" And the answer is, "Oh, my darling, what if you fly?" And we have been
I love that.
conditioned into only looking at what if I fall.
Right.
If we could shift that into, well, what if I fly? And let's
Yep.
just define what falling means. If you fall, does that mean that you will die on the spot? Does it mean that you will have to leave your home and your family? What does failing or falling, what does that mean? And once you have looked really at exactly what it means, well, then sometimes when you have defined it, when you know what it is, well, then actually it's not that bad. Right?
And that's where we build, that's where we learn, and that's when we build resilience, and that's when we cultivate resources to help us get back up again. It just as you were saying that that quote that was in my head, and I was about to share it myself. I love that. So it's the what if, it's the what if game, if you will. I love to use that question with my clients. So what if you thought about it differently? What if you took just a 2 millimeter shift in the way you think about it so that you can turn it around to something that's more positive, that will support you, that will move you forward instead of hold you back? So that's great advice. Great
Well, I
advice.
think
And I
there's
love that quote.
also there's another thing that we could be aware of, and that is we must feel worthy of being happy. And I
Yep.
think many of us we think, oh, happiness is a luxury, right? We think, oh, happiness is wonderful, but I just have to get on with it, right? I have got responsibility here, so I must just do what I must do, right?
Mm.
And we think, oh, it's all very well for other people. They can be happy, right? So it's really fundamentally about knowing that you absolutely deserve being ecstatically happy in your life. You
Yeah.
deserve getting up in the morning feeling inspired and eager to get on with the day. That is really what should be normal. That is what we were designed for, I believe.
Yeah, I totally agree. Believing that we deserve all of the good things, and being happy is one of those, and it's essential. We need to that belief is foundational in us getting what we want and moving toward that desire to be happy. And what does it take? What does it take? I we could talk about this for hours, I think, Katrina. But we have limited time here. I want to get to your tips. This is the section of the program that all our loyal viewers tell me is their favorite part, because there are practical tips and strategies that my guests share. So I'd love to know, what is your first tip?
My first tip, if you want to start perceiving some of your options, is to go back to your childhood before you started censoring your desires and, well, everything you thought you were capable of. As a child, we don't know we've got limitations, so we don't limit ourselves. So go back to your childhood, and find out, what was it that you loved doing? What did you love doing? What did you like playing? Or did you have an aunt who collected silverware and that fascinated you? Or try and get as many clues as possible of what lit you up when you were little. Like before we got into that, oh, I should, right? Before the should started. So that would be my first tip. Go back to your childhood.
That's such good advice, and I think when we do that, I like to just add another little tip. As you're exploring that, take notes, write in a journal or write somewhere that you, all of the things that come up for you, so that you've recorded it somewhere and you can look back on it. Writing it down is important. What's your next tip?
You're so right, Maria. We have to keep a record of all of this if we want to be really, really efficient here, right? So write it down. Also, it could be sort of an ongoing thing, because something could pop into your mind after a while. I say, oh, I like that too. Or I remember when we went on holiday, this happened. And so all this is vital clues, right? So you'll be
And
collecting that.
and even exploring new things as you are opening yourself up to possibilities. The thing you may choose to do next is something you've never done before, but you've tried and you love. So it's not, don't close your mind to it being something you've never tried before.
Yeah, definitely. So once you've documented all that, you you will have a lot of clues as to what your strengths are. So once you have started pinpointing your strengths from the things you liked, when I say strengths, it could just be preferences, really. I would take those strengths or preferences out to my friends and ask them, what do you think are my strengths? So I wouldn't divulge what I have found. I would ask them for input, right? So up to you who you want to ask. But the more people you ask, well, the more will be revealed to you, possibly. So when they come back to you, don't censor yourself. Like I said, somebody told me, oh, that I liked travel. And I didn't recognize that. But it
Right.
helped me define the idea that I don't like routine. So that was useful information, because I could work with that. It's not the travel I like, it's the absence of routine that I adore, right? So that was very good information for me too. So the more people you ask, the more clues you'll have.
Right, because the people you ask, if you ask people who are from different parts of your life, you're going to get different answers because they've experienced you in different ways. And that gives you a more rounded picture. So I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. I love that advice. That's a great tip. Do you have another one?
Yeah, so you called it the what if game, but my third tip was really be to take what you like doing and start thinking about how you could bring that into the world, and then for all the reasons why you couldn't do it, or why you think you can't do it, or why people tell you you can't do it, come up with one reason why you can. Right? I can become a hotel owner because, and then list all the things that would make you the most fabulous hotel owner in the world, right? And this is what you want to focus on. And then just remind yourself that this is not about perfection, right? Nobody's perfect. So you can still have some things you want to learn or something you want to develop, right? But there are so many things that you've already got that you might have used in your previous career or that you might have uncovered from your childhood, right? And it might need some twisting, it might need some developing, but just put it all down, all the good reasons why you can do what it is that you desire.
Yeah, I love that. The other thing I would add to that is then surround yourself with people who believe you can as well and will help you in the areas that you need help in order to get it done.
That is such good advice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we should really only surround ourselves with people who who can get lit up for what we are lit up
Yeah.
by, right? Who can share our enthusiasm and
Yeah.
understand that they might not want that, but we want that.
And one of the things I think we can do is when we surround ourselves with people who believe in us sometimes more than we believe in ourselves at the moment, we can borrow their belief and and call it our own until we have that same belief. So I think it's so important how we surround ourselves with people who believe that we can be anything we want to be, and they're going to help us get there. Katrina, this has been a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your time and your tips today. I really am so happy to bring this episode to the world because exploring options is sometimes something that people just don't do naturally and need a little bit of help to figure out. So how do I change? How do I move beyond this place of not feeling so happy doing what I'm doing and exploring what other possibilities there are? So thank you so much for joining me.
It has been my pleasure, Maria. Thank you for all the work you do. It's so
Oh,
precious.
thank you. And I'd like for you to share with our audience the one best way that they can get in touch with you.
They can hop over to my website, which is www.katrinehorn. So that is spelled KATRINEHORN.com. And they can get in touch with me or they can have a look at who I am and what I do. I always love hearing from people. Just drop me a line and let me know what you're considering and if you're stuck anywhere.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that offer. I am sure a lot of people will reach out to you. This has been a great conversation. Thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for watching and listening as well. I really appreciate your being a part of this community. As I said at the top of the show, if you are interested in anything that we had to say and would like more information, there are links in the show notes below with all of the email addresses and websites for Katrina and for me. There are downloads and trainings and books and free gifts for you to explore. Go explore your options on our websites. Plus, I invite you to continue the conversation if you would like to do that in my private Facebook group, which is called The Career Transition Roadmap on Facebook. So again, that link is below in the show notes as well. So let's meet again here next Wednesday and every Wednesday. I believe it's our time to thrive. Will you join me on that ride? I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. Till next time, we are turning transition into triumphs.